First and foremost, I have been loving Monster Hunter Rise these last few months, so I figured I had to make a video on it. I mean, it's basically all I play anyway, but before I go into what makes Monster Hunter Rise such a good game, I first want to explain what makes Monster Hunter as a series so good. So, what is Monster Hunter all about? I mean, you hunt monsters. But how does a game with such a short gameplay loop stretch out into such immense amounts of playtime hours? Depth. Different weapons to try, different monsters, different locales, so many different variables, so many different factors. Let's start with weapons. You've got your ranged weapons, fast melee weapons, slow but hard-hitting melee weapons, so on and so forth. So many different types to choose from. So many different armor sets to complement my playstyle. Want something that hits like a truck? Try the hammer or the greatsword. Given how slow they make you move, you're really going to have to learn the monster's moveset. Want something that allows you to stick with a melee weapon without sacrificing mobility? Maybe dual blades are for you. Want something ranged? Bow, light bowgun, or heavy bowgun might be calling your name. Point is, it doesn't matter how you want to play, chances are you'll find something that feels just right. Also, learning a new weapon that's out of your comfort zone is also something you can do once you get a grasp of the game's mechanics. So, why are all of these different weapons so important? Player choice. Giving players the freedom to experiment and experience something the way they want to experience it just has an authentic feel to it. I enjoy playing different weapons than my friends play in Monster Hunter. It makes it more unique to me. We actually end up complementing each other quite well on hunts. I'll knock a monster down with my hammer, and a friend of mine may then use that knockdown opportunity to work on cutting off the monster's tail with a longsword or a greatsword. Beyond that, just the act of changing weapons can make one monster feel completely different. In Monster Hunter, there is quite a diverse amount of monsters, particularly in something like Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, but in other games as well. Some monsters are big and slow, but hit very, very hard. Other monsters are quick, and don't give you too many chances to attack. Some monsters fly, some monsters stick to the ceiling of caves, some monsters do a lot of things. Poison effects, paralysis effects, blast blight, so many different things monsters can do to you, and so many things you can do back to the monster, besides just raw damage. But ultimately, the monsters in Monster Hunter mostly come down to their movesets. You really have to buckle up and learn a monster's moveset. Oh man, this monster's hip check keeps getting me, you say for the 5th time. Want to know how to avoid it? By avoiding it. I mean, it sounds dumb, but trust me. Look for telegraphs. Once a monster turns to the side and winds up a bit, that's your cue to get the heck out of the way. Do not get greedy. Seriously, never get greedy. The later monsters will really make you pay a heavy price. Learn how they move, learn where they go, and you'll find the openings you need to avoid getting hit and when to hit them back. Tying this back to the weapons, each weapon should typically attack different body parts. As a hammer and hunting horn user, I typically like to attack the head, to try to knock the monster out. I often see a lot of greatsword and longsword users attacking the tail to try to get the tail cut for extra rewards. Each weapon serves its purpose, and sometimes each weapon may be best used against specific enemies, so try to diversify which weapons you take on hunts a little if you can. So far, I've just been giving a rundown of Monster Hunter in general. But what about Rise? Well, for starters, Rise does adapt many qualities of life found in Monster Hunter World, but it does add a few more. Instead of waiting for the flex animation to play to heal, or the weapon sharpen animation and potentially getting caught, I can now roll out and cancel the animation. Sure, I may waste a bit of potion or some time, but it's better than taking a lot of damage. Does this make it a bit easier? Yes, but I'll get into that soon. One major aspect of Rise that simply cannot be ignored are the wire bugs. Seriously, these things change Monster Hunter quite significantly. It's hard to go back to the old ways now, actually. It sounds like such a simple tool, but in practice you are so much more mobile. You're so much more vertical. I mean, it's in the title, Rise. The Silkbind attacks aren't too different from the Hunter arts found in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, but you did not have mobility quite like this in any previous Monster Hunter. You can use this newfound mobility to either make fast weapons like dual blades even faster, or make big and clunky weapons like the hammer or the greatsword that much easier to get in, deal your big hit, and get out. The only problem with this is that some older monsters are rendered almost a complete non-issue. Seriously, given the new mechanics, they really start to seem out of place. So, do the wire bugs make the game a bit easier? Yes, of course they do. However, I have 2 points for that. First of all, although the old mechanics are a bit more unforgiving, I've had way more fun with the wire bugs in Rise. The movement and fluidity cannot be understated when compared to previous Monster Hunter installments. Secondly, the solution is not to get rid of them to make it harder. Rather, if you want a challenge, the solution should be to make the enemy design more aware of and more attuned to the player's newfound mobility. In other words, rather than take away a mechanic from the player to make it harder again, give the enemies new mechanics instead to balance things back out. The way forward should be up, not back down. I kind of like to think of it like Dark Souls 1 and 3. Dark Souls 1 was very difficult, but there was also a lot of jankiness to that game. Dark Souls 3, on the other hand, ironed out and cleaned up a lot of that jank. So, that would make Dark Souls 3 easier, right? Wrong. From Software compensated for the new quality of life improvements in Dark Souls 3 with enemies that will absolutely bash your skull in if you're not careful. Again, the way forward with a game being too easy is to bring the enemies up to the player's new level, not bring the player back down to theirs. With all of that said, that's not to say Rise is a walk in the park. I've carded a few times on the later levels. Heck, a couple of friends of mine and I have outright failed the odd quest here and there, just not as often as with previous games. Also, if I may add, a game shouldn't have to be hard to be good. I definitely found Rise easier than Generations Ultimate, but so far I found myself having way more fun with Rise. Difficult does not equal good. Now, I'm not saying all games should be a cakewalk. A solid challenge is a core part of what makes Monster Hunter feel so rewarding, but at the same time, difficult does not mean fun. So, yeah, I've been playing a lot of Monster Hunter, and I really like Rise for Switch. I think it's the perfect blend of being more approachable for newcomers, while still providing new toys and goodies for veterans to sink their teeth into. If you haven't already gotten this game, I highly recommend doing so, because I think it's fantastic. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, consider subscribing for more content, and ring that notification bell. See you in the next video.